Good morning and welcome to the presentation Decision Support at Pamela Retail. This morning what we're going to go through with you is how a decision support system has transformed the fortunes of the Pamela fashion retail business. An alternative title for this presentation would be 3 Steps to Data-Driven Retailing. And the 3 steps are 1, make it visual, 2, make it actionable, and 3, it has to be made easy. Good morning, my name is John Hogan. I work for a company called Real World Retail. We're a startup based out of Dublin. It was co-founded with Conal Lavery and myself. We're a retail analytics company on a SaaS platform. We're powered by Tableau, and in the last 18 months we have onboarded 250 stores, and that's increasing all the time at a faster and faster rate. In terms of myself, I'm originally an accountant. I've also been an IT manager and a business analyst. I've always worked in retail. My first 10 years were in the UK. I worked for French Connection and Martin McCall. And then over here in Ireland, I worked for Heaton's Department Stores, which was an associated company of Sports Direct. And during that period of time I worked with them, we went through tenfold growth from about 20 million to 200 million. And I was CFO for much of that time. So during that period, we learned a huge amount about how retail works, what works well, what doesn't work, and we've incorporated all of this into how we build our systems on Tableau. Okay, so what problem do we solve? What we find is, like retailers have EPOS systems, maybe ERP systems, maybe planning systems, but really what they have is lots of reports or even lots of data. But really the information isn't set up the way retailers run their businesses, and there is like a huge overhead in pulling out information the way you want it, and also in presenting it to people in good time. So what we've done is we've identified all of the business drivers for retail, and we put everything important at your fingertips in an easy, visual, and actionable way. So we start here with trading. We're looking at trading insights, variances, looking at season analysis, best and worst sellers, promotional effectiveness, etc. Like on range control, we got range planning, supplier negotiation, markdowns, open to buys, so on. Store development, store grading, basket analysis, customer engagement, loyalty segmentation, web analytics, audit, fraud detection, and shrinkage. And all of these things will either put money in the pocket of the retailer or they will take money away from the retailer. And what we do is visualize all of these and put it at their fingertips. So how it works, over here we have like an EPOS system, maybe an ERP system, but generally we find a lot of information is actually on spreadsheets. And then with our system on Tableau, what we do is we present them first with a visual for each area, and only then will we show them any detail or any actions that comes out of that. So this is what's happening now, and this is what we're going to do about it. And it works very simply and effectively. Okay, so this morning we're going to talk about Pamela Scott. Pamela Scott is a nationwide fashion retailer in Ireland with 27 stores. It's focused on ABC1 customers, and generally those that are over 35 years. Our local market in Ireland, many of you will be familiar with the headlines. International bailout and austerity has been like the name of the game for the last 5 years. Fashion spending typically has been reduced by 50%. It's very challenging for everybody, so for retailers, so they have to reinvent to adapt and survive. And now really they have to be good at everything whereas like previously, if they were good at maybe 5 or 10 of the business drivers we looked at earlier, they would have had a good business. Now they need to be good at everything. Okay, so after Pamela Scott became a data-driven retailer, like what was the result? What was the business outcome? Well, they've achieved double-digit sales growth, and that's still in an industry that's very much depressed. Although, like, the tech sector is booming over here, like consumer spending is very poor, and so that double-digit sales growth has been achieved in spite of a depressed market. Also, suppliers are sharing the risk to lower markdowns, so like that's driving the margin. They reduced their stock holding by 1 million whilst increasing their availability, and they've become a confident and transformed company. So how did this come about? It came about by them becoming a data-driven retailer. Everything important at their fingertips, individual, actionable, and easy. Like, they seem like 3 really simple things, but originally when we first did our system, we used to produce lots of reports for people, and like there were better reports than I had ever seen before. But what we found was people weren't using them because basically it was just too much information. So they were back to the same old problem of too much information, and that's where the visual, actionable, and easy comes into play. Okay, so the Pamela Scott transformation story begins here. In the challenging times that they were in, like one of their first actions to do was to like commission like professional market research, and this was done by a top-notch market research company. And in a nutshell, this is what the customers said about Pamela Scott. So like good was like the main thing, expensive was like very key as well. And then there was other things as well, like pretty good, I have to say. So from this, management would have interpreted this as reassuringly expensive. And so, like, I suppose they were a little bit disappointed that they didn't get more action points out of the market research. Okay. When we looked at the data told a different story. So firstly, when we looked at the trending, we could see here are the months at the bottom, and the periods of time they performed least well were the periods when they were in full price sales. So when they had like value in the shops, they performed well. When they didn't have value, basically they performed poorly. The next thing we looked at was their store grading, and here we could see the fast fashion collections has got 12% of the space, and it's got like 25% of the margin. And this like collection here is lower price stuff, just faster fashion. And then we could find like the higher price stuff wasn't performing as well compared to its space. Next, we look at a market basket analysis. And if we look here, say at our high-end label, that's interacting most with the own label 1 and 2. And so what was happening here in reality was they were buying customers were buying like one maybe expensive jacket, but really they didn't have the money to buy another expensive top. So really they were buying an own brand top to go with it. So the data told a different story. The data told the story that customers were looking for more value. So based on the initial data analysis, the following strategic decisions were decided on by management. So the first thing and the very biggest thing was offer more value in spite of the mixed results from the market research. Clearly segment store ranges into customer profiles. Use best practice merchandise planning to hold back more open to buy. So rather than committing so much money up front in an uncertain market, basically hold back your open to buy and spend more closer to like the selling period. Also launch a loyalty card and become a data-driven company. Okay, so at that stage we implemented our full decision support system, which is built on Tableau. Now, what we're going to look at for the next like 15 or 20 minutes, is like a Tableau server system. This is a demo system, so it's got like manipulated data on it, but at the same time it's like consistent with like what's happening in reality. So the first thing here is we've got lots of different projects or menus, and so we've got weekly trading, stock holding, range planning, store development, resourcing productivity, loyalty customer acquisition, finance security, and data self-service. And so when we go into one, inside we have like bunches of workbooks, and within each workbooks we've got different views. So we're going to have a look at the first one. So like today is like Wednesday, and we want to see how our week is doing. Sorry, today is Thursday. So if we look here, we can see this is what we sold yesterday for each shop, and we can see a color. So the color here is how are we doing on the same week or the same day last year. So if we compare to 52 weeks ago, we get a comparison for free. So we can see we're having a great week. Our sales are up 47% on the same week last year. We can see in the tooltip. And okay, leaving aside the tooltip, we can see Gibraltar isn't going very well, so we might need to give them a call. And we can see Edinburgh is going like very well, and maybe we need to find out what their magic is. We can also see by department, so which ones are working. So fast fashion is working great, and pretty much most of them are working maybe bar accessories. So like that is very simply like how we're doing so far this week. And when we went in, it knew what week we're in, it like knew what to compare to, and we got our insight straight away. Okay, so let's say now it's Monday morning. We want to know how we did last week. So here we are by store. We got sales versus budget versus last year, and then we got a margin, and we got last week, and we got year to date. So the question, so over here we can see like a good bunch of numbers, give us good information, but over here we can see a picture that tells us, which is easier to read. So we can see we're up like nearly 60 grand there on budget, which is the bullet, and we're up 56,000 on last year. The color here is the margin. So we can also then look at that by department. And so here now we can see, say, fast fashion collections up 20,000. So like really, why is that? So this is where our actions come in. So let's have a look at the categories to see what's working. And we can see it's jackets. We're up 15 grand on the same week last year. And what we're doing here is we're only showing you the categories where we're up or down more than 250. So here now we could drill into suppliers, categories, or products, and it'll tell us where we're up or down on the same week last year. So in the space of about 10 minutes, you can see what's good or what's bad about last year. Like here is by supplier, just hidden suppliers, which ones are up or down more than 250 quid on last year. Okay. So the next thing then is like, this is like the beginning of July. So we're going into sale. So really, what's the mix of full price selling versus reduced price selling? So we can see here, high-end label, we sold 10,000 last week at reduced 60,000 full price. So 61% of the orange is reduced. We come down here to fast fashion. We can see 95% is still at full price. And here is like a very good business lesson in terms of, you know, having a sale, but then having your full price merchandise as well to carry your margin through. And then you can also see that by store to see like how well the sale has taken hold. So, you know, you might want to follow up here on Galway. There's still like a lot of full price selling. Okay. Okay, then let's have a look at the top sellers for last week. So company top sellers. Retailers would have a very fixed view of like how top sellers looks like, and this is like the one report that they'd be guaranteed to look like. So we've just kept it in like the familiar tabular form. So product name, season, description, how much we sold, units we sold, what margin, and how many weeks cover. Because the name of the game here is make sure we got plenty of cover. And as you can see here, cover in weeks is quite light. But then again, this is a fashion business. But then this is where data visualization can like really improve things. So these are the same top sellers again, and this time we're showing what each store has sold of the top sellers. And the stores go in ascending order of turnover, so the further right we go, the more units they should be selling. And then in the background, what we've put in is the stock on hand. So if it's less than 5 units, it's red. If it's more than 5 units, it's green. So we can see at a glance here, like we're running out of stock on many of our top sellers. Like not such a huge issue for a fashion company, but if you were like DIY or pharmacy or whatever, that would be a huge issue, you know. Then the other thing we look at while we're in here is we have a look at our new products to see what has come in the last 10 days. And so these are all the new products that have come in the last 10 days. And in here we can see like our sales value for the last 10 days. So here's a good product. So the next question is as well, what stores is it in and how well is it doing there? So now our action will take us into each store. It'll say this is what we delivered, this is what we sold, and now basically we may decide to go back and get a repeat order of this, or basically we may just hustle stores to push these through faster. Okay. Also, at this time of year, we want to know how our season is going to break in terms of like how clean are we going to be in terms of finishing our season. So we're in spring summer 14, so we're looking at quantity, and so this is the number of units we've still got left, 26,000 units. Now what we've done is, like the question here is like what will we sell between now and the end of the season. So what we're going to do is we're going to use spring summer 13 as our comparison, and let's say that we think we will get maybe 20% growth. So what this does is take spring summer 13 and basically applies 20% to last year's quantities, and the background here is our margin. So we can see like really we had hammered the margin on these ones last year. So you know maybe we're not going to get 20% growth on them. And then over here what we see is these are going to be our residual values, which is like this minus this. So we can see here specialist 1 we probably need to go a bit harder, and high-end label 2, the rest maybe not such an issue. Okay, so that's what's going on at the moment in our business. So next thing now we're going to look at is like range planning, planning our buy, all of that sort of stuff. Okay, so the first like place we start is like how much money are we going to spend for the season. And very often we would have had conversations about, you know, when does the season start and finish? Like, does autumn start in July? Does it start in August? Like, does it finish in January? Does it finish in February? So, like, really that doesn't need to be a mystery anymore. So what we've done here is just shown all the different seasons, and we can see for each month how much we've sold for each season. So I've highlighted, I want to plan autumn winter 14. So I'm going to look at what we sold in autumn winter 12 and 13 based on how we tagged the seasons. Okay, so for autumn winter 12, we can see here, this is the red one. We can see like it starts off kind of July, maybe 10, 15,000, then August 30, 40,000, then September 50 to 70,000, then 80,000, up to 90,000, and then basically we can see there's a long tail here. So that would suggest like we had actually bought too much stock, or we bought more than we could sell. Okay, so then here we just can see the exact same picture again, but this time we're looking at cost of sales. right? So we see how much we need to buy to sell for each month. So then we do a running total of the cost of sales. So what we find is up to the end of December, we had sold 133,000 for this department before we hit markdowns, right? So the margin here is the colour. So we can see up to the end of December, we sold 133,000. Okay, so that's history. So let's what we want to know now is how much we ought to be spending as a budget. So let's say we expect to sell through in 8 weeks. So anything we sell in December, we need to bring in October. So that's 8 weeks. And say we're going to go for 12% growth because we're really on top of things now. And we're also going to buy into 20% markdown. So what that's done here, and all of these I can just change, and what that's done is we can now see that our 133 grand of history becomes 168 grand of a buy, and that buy needs to be in by the end of October, right? So again, we're looking at cumulatives, but really we want to know, well, give us an idea of what our intake should be. So this then becomes the intake, so that's just subtracting cumulatives from each other. So we can see how much stock we should be taking in. So we should start our intake in May, June, and basically we need to have this amount of stock in this month. So now we've got a good cash flow management tool. Okay, so next thing then is, well, what exactly are we going to buy? Okay, so this time we'll go to range planning, right? So a very common problem here is sometimes retailers aren't they miss or they leave their range reviews behind, and so they don't necessarily they miss them, and basically then the product drifts along, and basically they end up with more markdowns. So what we do is we have that spreadsheet there, and so this just says this is when we need to do our range review. And what we do is on Tableau we pull that into the system, but that was a very static document and not the most exciting one. So what we do is we match it up to the markdowns for the last 6 months. So now we can see we've got a range review to do in February for high-end label 1. And basically in the last 6 months we had 215,000 euros in markdowns. So now we have lots of reasons to do that range review. So this really focuses the mind when you look to see what markdowns we've been taking on these departments. Okay, so the next thing then is we're going to do our range review. So we want to maybe look at which suppliers are working well for us. So again, retailers are used to a lot of detail, so you don't necessarily want to take everything away from them. So what we've done is, so these are all the supplier names here we've hidden for the demo. And we can see our full price sell-through, okay? And we can see what full price margin we took, and we can see our markdowns to date, and we can see our margin. And we can also see what stock we've still left, right? We can see outstanding orders. And then the problem, an issue here is sometimes we still have stock left when we're out buying. So rather than talking to a supplier about a 67% margin, you'll actually, what we've done over here is we're predicting the markdowns and predicting the margin when you've sold through. And so really we're saying, look, it's only a 65% margin. And, or if you look at this one, 51% margin at the moment, but really that's going to be 47%, right? And any margin below 50%, color changes to red. So these guys are highlighted straight away. And what we find in the real world then is face-to-face with the buyer. The suppliers can't escape from the information. And what they're then doing is they're taking more of a partnership report with the retailer, and retailers are getting better deals. Okay, so let's have a look at this then by style, by month. And we can see what we've sold each month, and also the colour turns red if the margin drops below like 40%. Like, you know, very often an inexperienced buyer could end up buying into markdowns, whereas here you see straight away how many you sold at full price and how many you sold at a reduced price. We can also see like a brand summary, and we can also see it by sub-department or any other way that we want. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to move on. Next thing then we're going to come to is our open to buy. Okay, so like as a CFO for a retailer, like I would have spent days upon days like looking at open to buys, and when I looked at the open to buys, I was looking at something that looked like this, right? It was a bunch of numbers. So the way an open to buy works is we know what stock we have on hand now. These are all future weeks. We know what's on the way in, what we've ordered. We know what we're going to sell based on a budget or based on last year. So then we know what stock we're likely to have every week or month into the future. Okay, so then basically we also need a stock budget. And here we want to have like a 12-week budget. So what the planning system will do, or in this case what we're doing with Tableau, is we're just adding the next 12-week sales forward, and we're calculating a dynamic budget. The difference between your forecast and the budget then is your open to buy. So you can see here we're like massively overstocked. Okay, and all of this has come from purely an EPOS system and like a spreadsheet with the stock cover budgets on it. And, you know, this has come from, there's no merchandise planning system behind this. This is all done on Tableau. Right, so rather than looking at a bunch of numbers, basically it's much easier to read a picture. So here we can see for each department, like for every month going forward, do we need to spend more money, or have we already spent too much money, right? And really, the open to buy is like a key tool for managing like your stock holding, especially for fashion retailers, because you know you can plan all you want, you know, but you know plans never come exactly to fruition, and so therefore you need a more dynamic tool that manages it as you go. Okay, so let's go in here then, and right, so we've got like way too much stock. So first thing we might look at is, let's see our orders for the month. And here they are. So now what we can find is like a lot of these are overdue orders that haven't been cancelled. But if they haven't been cancelled, they could still arrive in. So like that's an issue. So like that needs to be all sorted out. Next thing then is maybe we'd look at our slow sellers. And so here's our slow sellers. And up here I've got a filter up here, so I said only show me the ones where I've got more than 1,000 in stock. So there's not that many there, so I might say show more than 500 in stock. And now here's a longer list, so basically the buyer may choose to do promotions on here. Okay, so now more actions, show me my stock by season. Maybe this is a lot of old season stock. And again, when we look here, we can see stock cost. So most of it is spring summer 14, which is still live. Some of it's autumn winter coming, and only a small proportion of it is in old season. And also almost all of it is in the stores. The orange is what's in the warehouse. Okay, so like it's up pretty current stock. So like in the space of like an hour, a couple of hours here, like a buyer and a merchandise planner or a buying director, planning director, like they would probably achieve more in a couple of hours than like with the old way of doing things they would have achieved in like a week. Because previously, you know, the buyer would have go away and they'd find out the answers to all these questions, they'd come back to you by which time you've forgotten. And whereas here, like the whole thing happens there and then. And this really is like the crux of decision support. Okay. Right. So that is like a view of maybe 10 of the modules, right, that are on our decision support system built on the Tableau server. Okay, so let's just go back and finish where we were. From current slide. Right, so these were the strategic decisions. Then basically we delivered in a system to implement all of those, and then these are more of the same thing. We also have like styles for potential rollout. So we're looking at the winners in individual shops to see like our trial products to see if they can be rolled out. From a stock holding point of view, we look at transfers, low sellers. We're looking at cover by permanent store. We're looking to see how accurate really is the stock. On loyalty, this was like a picture of maybe 4 weeks after loyalty went live. And here is the number of transactions per customer. Every circle is a customer. We've just hidden their names. We put the store name there instead. And this is how much they spent. So our biggest spending customer was 1,200 quid, and that was Eileen from Edinburgh. And then the other interesting thing in here is the colour, and the colour here is margin. So we can see here that some customers are motivated by promotions, and then others are motivated more by brand, the green guys. So from this, what Pamela and Scott have done is they will invite they can drill into the green customers, and basically they will be invited to a brand evening where they'll get a brand representative in, and then the guys that are red will be given like promotional vouchers, and they will be more actively targeted at promotional time. Okay. Next is resourcing and productivity. So we can see when is the store busy. So this is the time of day and day of week. So on this store here, we can see this is like mostly an evening and weekend store, right? And so evening store, weekend store, the bigger the square, the more transactions we're doing on that day. And down here, we have pulled in information from payroll, and we can see each cashier, how many units per transaction, what their ATV, their payroll hours, and the number of transactions per hour. And like if we had a time management system here, we could pull in that in here, and we could see the number of staff working for each of these hours, and then basically we could color this based on transactions per hour, and then we can see really when are we under and over resourced. Okay. Finally, on the pictures, this is is visualization in a nutshell of what it achieves. And this was a real live case. And what we're doing here is we're looking to see we're looking for fraud amongst cashiers. So what we've done again, every circle is a cashier, and we've just plotted them based on value and percentage of sales. And we can see we've got most people here are all in the pack, and we've got one major outlier. And then basically, so we only need to look at Yvonne, so we can then drill into her refunds. And this was like a real live case where when we presented our system in, there was CCTV was put on her, and 2 weeks later she was arrested and she admitted to taking 10,000. So that was very visible and very quick, and that's really shows how retailer can be really good at everything, right? And you've got about 30 things as a retailer, as a regular retailer, you've got to be on top of, and more if you're like a bigger retailer or a tier 1 retailer. And basically, by having visuals on each of them and actions, you know everything that's important, and that goes in an easy, visual, and actionable way. Okay. So just back to the Payback, Pamela Scott's. They got their payback by being really good at every retail discipline within existing resources. So they were just much lighter on their feet with this, Like they know much more than their suppliers know, they know more than their competitors know, and they've got thinking time now. And double-digit sales growth, higher margin, reduced stock holding. Okay, what else? So with our retail background, the implementation didn't require any resources from their point of view. Like we just got minimal direction from them, and then basically we get valuable feedback from them. We welcome all feedback. We'll talk about wisdom of the crowds in a second. So no, they already had all the hard work done in that they had their EPOS system, and so then it was just pulling data from there. It was delivered over the web in weeks, minimum upfront cost. Then our retail experience meant the solution was directed to where there was immediate profit improvements. So back to those 30 business drivers. Okay, then like one thing that we hadn't anticipated was the wisdom of the crowds. Like originally we were delighted with like, you know, what you've just seen. Like that is like very impressive and like producing like amazing results, right? But like on say pharmacy, we're further down the line than we are in fashion, and basically like one huge thing we've had from there is wisdom of the crowds, and like that means any customer can ask a question. The data then gives us the answer. Then basically we can see like important insights that the original questioner never like even appreciated, and those important insights will be rolled out to all customers. So even though like we delivered in maybe, you know, initially maybe 120% of what the retailer thought was possible, we're now at probably 160 or 70% of basically what they originally thought possible, because like people have different customers have different strengths and weaknesses, and basically so we consistently apply each customer's strength right across all customers, and we upgrade our system every 2 months, and like with the agility that Tableau gives us, it just means that like it's like an amazing like upgrade path like all the time. And like in pharmacy, like I would go as far as to say we're changing a whole industry how it works there. Okay, then the last thing then, once we have enough anonymized data for each sector, we'll do benchmarking. So like things like, you know, markdowns by category, price point, performance, all of the things that customers are happy to share with each other because there's a collaborative approach. We're happy to do that for them as like for free as a byproduct of like all the data we have. Okay, so thanks very much. Thanks for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.